The rain had stopped just an hour before, leaving the streets of Boston shining under the amber glow of streetlights. Inside the Cohen household, laughter and silverware clinked against china plates. It should have been a perfect family dinner, but for me, it was the night everything quietly broke. "My name is Alaska Cohen," I reminded myself as I stared at the candle flickering in the center of the table, its flame trembling like my resolve. I'd spent weeks preparing to pitch my startup idea to my parents, rehearsing every number, every slide, every possible objection. I wasn't just asking for a loan. I was asking to be seen. "Alaska, pass the wine," Dad said, his tone as casual as if this was any other Thursday. Sophia, my younger sister, laughed softly beside him, the kind of laugh that always seemed to invite affection. The good daughter, the chosen one. Mom adjusted the napkins perfectly around her plate. "Sophia's got big news tonight," she said with a knowing smile. My pulse quickened. I had big news too, but I could already feel whose would matter more. Sophia leaned forward, glowing with excitement. "I got accepted into Princeton's medical program." The room erupted in applause. Dad stood to toast, Mom's eyes welled with pride, and I smiled, even clapped. Because that's what the invisible sister does. Then Mom added warmly, "We'll cover the rest of your tuition and your housing, sweetheart. You just focus on your studies." My chest tightened. That was over $100,000, approved without hesitation. The very kind of faith I had prayed they might show me. When Sophia finally sat back, cheeks flushed with joy, she turned to me innocently. "Didn't you have something to share too, Alaska?" I stood, palms damp, and connected my laptop to the TV. "I do." My voice shook slightly, but I pushed through. For the past 6 months, I've been working with 2 partners on a startup, an app called Fin Mentor. It helps young people access affordable financial advice from real experts. We've already built the prototype, and early feedback's incredible. I clicked through the slides. Problem, solution, projected growth. We just need $13,000 more to finish our launch phase. I'm not asking for a gift. It's a formal loan with interest, backed by a contract. When I finished, silence filled the dining room like fog. Dad's fork scraped against his plate. He cleared his throat. "Alaska," he began in that accountant's tone I knew too well. "Startups fail every day. 90% don't make it past year 1. I tried to smile. "That's why we've planned conservatively." Mom cut in gently. "Honey, you have a stable job. Why give that up for something so risky? You've worked hard to build a secure life. Don't throw it away." "Because I believe in this," I said, voice trembling but steady. "This isn't just a project. It's something that could help people like me who never had financial guidance." Dad's expression hardened. "You're 26, Alaska. You need to learn financial independence." My breath caught. Financial independence? I had been independent since 14. Babysitting, working weekends, paying my own rent, surviving college with loans. Across the table, Sophia looked down at her plate. For once, even she couldn't smile. Mom reached across, her hand brushing mine. "We love your passion, sweetie. But this is not the right time. Maybe later." I pulled my hand back slowly. "Right time for who?" I whispered. The silence that followed said everything. That night, as I packed my suitcase in my childhood room, I realized something irreversible. I'd been chasing approval from people who had already decided I wasn't worth betting on. But they were right about one thing. I was about to learn financial independence in the truest, hardest way, and they would one day read about it in the very magazine they thought I'd never reach. The house slept peacefully that night, but I didn't. The rejection looped in my mind like a cruel lullaby. Their words, financial independence, still echoed, twisting into something between insult and prophecy. At dawn, I sat at my desk, the same one where I had studied late into countless nights as a teenager, surrounded by trophies that had never been enough. I wrote a short note on my mother's monogrammed stationery. Thank you for clarifying where I stand. I'll be fine on my own. It wasn't anger that guided my hand, it was clarity. I placed the note neatly on my bed, zipped my suitcase, and looked around one last time. The room that once felt too small for my dreams suddenly seemed enormous, hollowed out by absence. Downstairs, the air smelled faintly of coffee and pot roast leftovers. Family photos lined the hallway. Every one of them the same pattern. Sophia front and center, Mom and Dad beside her, me off to the side, smiling politely. That arrangement suddenly felt symbolic of everything. Outside, morning light filtered through the trees as I dragged my suitcase down the path. I didn't wake them. They had already made their choice. The train to New York hummed quietly as the city unfolded outside the window, gray, alive, indifferent. I opened my laptop and stared at our unfinished pitch deck. The dream felt heavier now, like a debt I owed myself. By afternoon, I had resigned from my marketing job. My boss's polite surprise stung more than I expected. "You're sure, Alaska? It's risky out there." "I know," I said simply. "But I can't stay safe and die slowly." The next week was a blur of survival math. I found a small studio apartment in Queens, chipped paint, thin walls, a heater that clanked like a broken clock. $800 a month. It might as well have been a palace. That evening, I sat cross-legged on the bare mattress with a box of takeout noodles, staring at my laptop screen. Finn Mentor glowed in bold letters. Beneath it, our tagline, "Empowering Financial Confidence, Irony," I thought. I didn't feel confident at all. When I told Eliza and Lucas, my co-founders, what had happened, I braced for hesitation, maybe even withdrawal. But Lucas's voice came steady over the speaker. "We're all in, Alaska. If anything, this just proves you believe in what we're building," Eliza added softly. "We'll figure it out." Every great startup begins with a door slammed shut. Their faith steadied me. But the reality was brutal. Bills were real. Hope didn't pay rent. So I took the earliest barista job I could find at a coffee shop near my apartment, 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every afternoon, I worked on Finn Mentor. Every night, I coded, researched, wrote copy, refined pitches. Sleep became optional. 3 weeks in, my body was exhausted, but my mind refused to stop. Then, one morning at the cafe, a man in his 50s, crisp suit, kind eyes, watched me refill his coffee. "You look like someone who hasn't slept in days," he said lightly. I smiled. "Startup life. It's not glamorous," he chuckled. "What's your startup?" Before I could answer, my coworker piped up. "She's building an app to make financial advice affordable for young people. She works here mornings and codes all night." The man's brows rose. "Really? That's fascinating." He slid a business card across the counter. "Derek Taylor, managing partner, Horizon Ventures." "Send me your pitch deck," he said, smiling. "I've got an hour tomorrow." When he left, I stared at the card, my hands trembling around the edges. After all the doors that had closed on me, this one, unexpected, impossible, had just opened. The next day, I stood outside Horizon Ventures' glass building, clutching my laptop so tightly my knuckles turned white. My second-hand blazer felt too stiff, my confidence too fragile. Inside, everything gleamed. Polished marble floors, abstract art, a receptionist who smiled like she'd seen this nervous scene 100 times before. Derek Taylor greeted me with a firm handshake and a calm confidence that somehow steadied me. His office overlooked all of Midtown, the skyline slicing through sunlight like ambition itself. "Show me what you've built," he said simply. For 40 minutes, I poured everything out, our vision, the market gap, the prototype, the raw hunger behind Finn Mentor. My voice trembled only once when I explained why this mattered to me. I made every financial mistake possible in college. I didn't know who to ask, and I paid the price for it. This app would have changed my life back then. When I finally stopped, the silence stretched thin. Derek leaned back, tapping his pen against the table. "Your idea is good," he said. "But what's better is your conviction." I blinked, unsure if that was praise or pity. Then he smiled. "I'm offering you $200,000 in seed funding. 20% equity." The words hit me like thunder. "You're serious?" "Completely," he said, signing the preliminary agreement right there. "Sometimes we invest in the person, not just the product. You're the kind of person who doesn't quit." When I walked out of that building, the city didn't look the same. It wasn't hostile anymore. It was electric. 3 weeks later, the funds hit our account. Suddenly, Finn Mentor wasn't a dream on a laptop. It was real. We rented a tiny office in a co-working space, hired 2 junior developers, and for the first time, paid ourselves just enough to survive. The grind that followed was relentless, but exhilarating. We coded for 18 hours some days, fueled by takeout and bad coffee. Our first beta launch rolled out to 100 test users. We sat in front of the dashboard, refreshing every 10 seconds as the first reviews came in. They were brutal. Confusing layout. Slow loading. Feels amateur. Each comment felt like a blade. For 2 days I couldn't sleep. All I heard was my father's voice echoing. "Startups fail every day, Alaska." But Derek's response, when I called him in a panic, was steady. "Every first version is terrible. What matters is what you do next." So we went back to work. Lucas rebuilt the back end from scratch. Eliza redesigned the entire interface. I personally called 20 users to understand their frustrations. Every word, every critique became a stepping stone. 3 weeks later, we launched our update. This time the feedback changed. Much smoother now. Actually helped me understand my student loan. I'd pay for this. The day we hit 1,000 active users, we celebrated with cheap champagne in plastic cups. I laughed until I cried, because for the first time, the world was seeing what I had always believed was possible. That night, exhausted but happy, I got a text from Sophia. "Happy birthday, sis. Mom and Dad got me a new car. Early graduation present? Miss you." The photo that followed, her beside a new Audi, my parents beaming, hit harder than any bad review ever could. I stared at it, realizing I had forgotten my own birthday entirely. No call, no message, nothing. I closed my phone and whispered into the quiet office. Fine, forget me. But deep down, I knew every ignored birthday, every closed door was fuel. They'd handed me rejection, and I was turning it into fire. 18 months later, Finn Mentor was no longer a fragile dream. It was a movement. One article from TechCrunch changed everything. A journalist used our app to prepare for buying her first home and wrote a glowing review titled, "The app that makes money makes sense." Overnight, our user base exploded, from 8,000 to 100,000 in 3 weeks. Financial advisors started flooding our inboxes, begging to join the platform. Investors who once ignored my emails were now calling me first. The noise was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Derek helped us navigate the storm. "Success tests people more than failure," he warned during one late-night strategy call. "Stay grounded. Grow smart." So we raised a $3 million seed round and expanded into a proper office in Manhattan's Flatiron District. Whiteboards lined the walls, Our logo shone proudly in blue and gold, and I finally felt like the CEO I'd pretended to be a year ago. But success didn't erase the scars. It only shone light on them. Every night after the office emptied, I'd stare out at the city lights and remember that dinner table, the candle flame, the silence that followed my pitch. No matter how high I climbed, that moment was still stitched into my bones. Then came the nomination, Emerging Woman in Tech. I almost didn't attend the gala. The other nominees had billion-dollar valuations, their faces already familiar in magazines. But Eliza insisted. You deserve to be there, Alaska. Even if you don't win, you belong in that room. When they called my name, I froze. The applause blurred, the stage lights burned, and I realized I had won. I accepted the crystal trophy with shaking hands. This, I said into the microphone, is for every person who's ever been told to play it safe. Sometimes the riskiest thing you can do is not believe in yourself. That quote would later trend on social media, but in that moment it was just truth leaving my lips. The visibility from the award brought Silicon Valley to our door. Within months, 5 venture capital firms requested meetings. The lead investor, a woman with silver hair and eyes sharp as insight, studied me across a long conference table overlooking the bay. Your user retention is extraordinary, she said. People don't just use FinMentor, they stay. That's rare. We didn't pitch. We conversed. It wasn't a test. It was recognition. By the end of that meeting, she slid a term sheet across the table. Series A, $15 million at a $60 million valuation. I looked at the numbers, remembering a smaller number that had once defined me, $13,000. The loan my parents couldn't trust me with. Now strangers believed in me more than my own family ever had. When the funding hit, we grew from 10 people to 50, new offices, AI integration, global users. We passed 1 million accounts. Media outlets called us the future of financial empowerment. I should have felt triumphant. Yet one night, after another 14-hour workday, I sat alone in my glass-walled office, staring at my reflection in the window. The skyline glittered behind me. Millions of feel small. Sophia rushed down the stairs, her face lit with genuine warmth. You look incredible. I've been bragging about you nonstop. You're basically famous now. I smiled softly. I wouldn't go that far. We sat. The first few minutes passed in awkward politeness. Weather, traffic, holiday sales. Then finally, Dad cleared his throat. Alaska, he began carefully. What you've accomplished. It's remarkable. We've read everything we could find about FinMentor. We're proud, truly, Mom nodded quickly. We always knew you'd do something amazing. We just never realized it would be this. I looked at them, really looked, and saw 2 people trying to rewrite the past with flattery. Once those words would have meant everything. Now they felt like a patch on a wound that had long since healed without them. Thank you, I said evenly. It's been a journey. Dad hesitated, eyes flicking toward his plate. We made mistakes. We thought we were teaching you responsibility, but maybe we were just too cautious. Too cautious, I echoed, smiling faintly. That's one way to put it, Mom's voice cracked. We should have supported you, sweetheart. We see that now. I nodded, not out of forgiveness but acknowledgement. You were protecting your idea of me, not me. For a moment, silence wrapped around us again, heavy but different. Then, predictably, Dad tried to find a silver lining. Maybe it all worked out for the best. If we'd given you that loan, maybe you wouldn't have pushed so hard. I met his eyes. I didn't succeed because you said no. I succeeded in spite of it. That landed. He looked down again, no defense left to offer. Sophia reached across the table gently. You always were the strong one, she said. I used to envy that. I shook my head. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's what's left when you have no one else to rely on. After dessert, Dad asked quietly, "We're thinking about investing some of our savings for retirement. Maybe you could guide us. Or, Finn Mentor has licensed advisors for that." I interrupted politely. "I can connect you to one." He nodded. The message understood. Later, as I stepped into the crisp December air, Sophia walked me to my car. Her voice trembled. "Do you forgive them?" I exhaled slowly. Forgiveness isn't pretending it never happened. It's choosing not to carry it anymore. So yes, I forgive them. But it doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. "And us?" she asked softly. I smiled. Genuinely this time. Us can start over. Months later, Finn Mentor launched a scholarship program for young entrepreneurs without family support. My quiet rebellion turned into purpose. Sometimes I think of that night years ago, the candle burning on the dinner table as my dream was dismissed. That flame had wavered, but it never went out. Now, as I look at our headquarters skyline, Forbes on my shelf, and a team thriving worldwide, I finally understand what success truly means. Not revenge. Not validation. Freedom. Because the greatest triumph isn't proving them wrong. It's proving to yourself you were right all along.